This is a Chucky Beat production. This is a Chucky Beat production.
Welcome to The Habit Influencer. I'm your host, TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me. This is the program where we get together every single day and talk about good habits, how to build good habits to build a more fulfilling, healthier, happier, more interesting and enjoyable life. It's also where we try to figure out how to minimize bad habits in our life. Lots of stories to go over today, lots of new information, plus your comments, questions, thoughts as well. We'll dive right in. Quick overview of the show today. We'll be talking about this massive health outbreak, this epidemic, and what we can all do regarding our habits to minimize our risk of this dangerous pandemic. And I'm not talking about the coronavirus, believe it or not. In topic A, we'll be looking at, are we focused on the biggest problems, the biggest risks in our life? And topic B, building foundational habits for each key sphere of life. And in topic C, we'll be looking at successful habits for working from home. I work from home. I know many of you do as well, which gives you the opportunity to watch this program. We'll be looking at some of the most successful habits people have when they work at home. Also in the news, some interesting habits from David Beckam, habits his wife doesn't like, but I would argue are actually good habits for him or anyone else, habits related to play. We'll be looking at the 7 habits of self-made millionaires, and also taking a step back in life, in time, looking at some habits of concentration from Alfred Whitehead, one of the premier philosophers of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Also, more data on the nefarious impacts of cell phones at dinner tables, what that does to relationships. All that and more, plus your comments, questions on today's Habit Influencer. Thanks for joining me. In the news, we can't escape it. Horrors of pandemics, panics, people worried about dying, a massive health scare. And no, I'm not talking about the coronavirus. In no means trying to minimize the potential danger of the coronavirus. And I say potential. Right now, the vast majority of people who get the coronavirus don't die and recover. And as of right now, several thousand people have died from the coronavirus. So I'm in no way minimizing the coronavirus. But here's what I noticed today. There were giant headlines everywhere yesterday, all week, about the coronavirus. Stock markets crashing, panic, people going to the stores fighting each other over masks for a potential health risk. This is happening in communities, certainly across the United States and around the world, where no one within miles and hundreds of miles, sometimes thousands of miles, has been diagnosed with the coronavirus. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't pay to be prudent, but what I am suggesting is that we need to have some sense of perspective based on real threats that are happening right now. Coronavirus is a potential massive threat if it spirals out of control. But there's another disaster that's already here. And there's new statistics coming out today, just released this morning. This is from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The latest statistics show that 42% of Americans, basically close to half, now suffer from obesity. I'm not talking about couple 5-10 pounds extra. I'm talking about clinically, medically obese. Nearly 10% are severely obese. Now, we said this mockingly before, obese is the near normal, severely obese is the new overweight. Folks, this is an absolute epidemic, and it's a crisis of extreme proportion. Because again, coronavirus, yeah, I certainly hope that doesn't spread, and it's certainly the potential to be a big killer. But we have another huge killer, and it is already here. Why isn't anyone taking it seriously? Or why are so few people taking it seriously? We can't necessarily control if we contract coronavirus if the virus gets into our system, if we somehow accidentally breathe it. But when it comes to obesity, I'm not saying it's about willpower or self-discipline, but obesity is something that is treatable. It is something where we know the cause. The cause is consuming wildly in excess the number of calories we need to sustain our body on a daily basis. And there are public policy issues that can be dealt with. Some politicians have been mocked in the past for trying to ban 32-ounce Cokes, but that would actually help. Obesity is a problem. It is here. It's not killing 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 or 100 a day the way the coronavirus is, as bad as that is. Obesity is causing deaths to millions of people a year around the globe. Millions of people die from obesity. It's an epidemic, and yet you'll have a hard time even finding a story about this epidemic. I had to search high and low and finally found it in small print. The research coming out of the Center for Disease Control. Here's what they found. In 2017-18, the U.S. obesity rate was 42%. Severe obesity rate was 9%. This is a 2% increase in the obesity rate from 2015-2016, a 1% rise from previously severe obesity, which isn't that big a jump. The problem is the trend line is only going one way. It's going up, 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 up. And that means earlier graves for people. That means people die sooner. It means the quality of life is destroyed if you can't get out of your bed or off your couch because you are so severely obese. Why is that somehow more acceptable than a coronavirus? People do recover from a coronavirus. If you are 60 years old and you are severely obese, you could recover from it, but not if you don't drastically change your habits. And the result quite often is diabetes, stroke, heart attack, your leg has to be amputated. Even if you don't die 10, 15, 20 years younger, the quality of your life is so radically diminished. I'd rather have coronavirus, at least the kind that doesn't kill, the non-lethal kind, than obesity. You can recover much faster from coronavirus than obesity. And unfortunately, the resolution for many people, especially in America, of obesity is simply early death. And it doesn't get a front page headline story. People don't panic. People aren't going out and buying masks because their next door neighbor died 15 years prematurely because of obesity. But I challenge you, I ask you, why is it different? Why is it considered less threatening than a coronavirus? People say, well, we don't know how big coronavirus is. Well, we do know how big obesity is. It is a problem that kills millions of people around the globe. If I told you today, okay, we know that coronavirus will kill 1 million people a year, but peak at that, it will never kill more, would that somehow make you feel better? I don't think so. I think there would be even more panic in the streets. So this is a huge, huge problem. Let's look at some other statistics that have come in. Now, the obesity rates have been increasing dramatically for nearly 50 years. 50 years ago, 1 in 100 people in the United States was severely obese. 1 in 100. Now it's almost 1 in 10. Now, if you have any doubts as to these statistics, I would suggest you go to a Kmart, go to a Walmart, go to a Costco, go to a Home Depot, and look around. And you will think perhaps this estimate of 9%, 10% severe obesity is undercounting. If we saw someone walking through the streets coughing, spewing the coronavirus, we might be concerned for them and for other people they're harming. The problem is when people are severely obese and they are parents, they are people who buy food and prepare food for others, it's contagious. In some ways, it's more contagious, not in the same pathogenic sense, but it is contagious. Overeating is a social phenomenon. It is an epidemic where entire families, entire communities, entire neighborhoods systematically indulge in habits that create not only obesity, but severe obesity. Here's what a CDC epidemiologist said, and the co-author of the study. This is from Cynthia Ogden. She said, we've seen increases in obesity going back to the 1980s, so it continues to be a public health concern. We know that obesity, and severe obesity in particular, are associated with many chronic conditions, including diabetes and heart disease. They also, this particular study, this is coming from The Sun, which is a British newspaper. United States papers, I don't think, even wanted to talk about this. But they quote another expert, Dr. William Dietz, who said that the findings suggest that more Americans will get diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, as the obesity rate has risen to approximately 40% in the last 20 years. More and more therapy is going to be needed, more and more doctors for all of these people. There's no simple solution, and yet there is. The simple solution is if people ate real food made from real vegetables, real fruit, drank water, ate unprocessed food, dramatically decreased sugar intake, salt intake, fat intake that's been artificially injected into food, and exercised a little and ate roughly 2,000 calories a day, the obesity epidemic would vanish overnight. It really would. I realize it's not that popular to say that. I'm not suggesting it's easy in the sense that someone can switch a button. But this does relate to habits. People are rightly concerned about the spread of coronavirus, and so they want to have masks because they don't want to get in the habit of breathing contaminated air from others, or if they have a disease, spreading it by breathing on them. So diseases quite often are transmitted through habits. We seem to pay close attention to that when it's a bright, shiny new disease where there's a potential for a lot of destruction. But when it's a slow, creeping disease that's right in front of us for year after year after year, and it gradually kills, somehow we become oblivious to this. So that's my question to you. How do we in the world take a disease, which is an epidemic, a pandemic, how do we get people to take this seriously? Because I don't, certainly I hope we have a vaccine that eliminates the coronavirus or inoculates people against the coronavirus tomorrow. It'd be great. That would be wonderful. I would be celebrating. But we basically have a vaccine to eliminate the millions and millions and millions of people dying from severe obesity and obesity every year. And the vaccine isn't in a shot, but it's basically the same thing. It's called eating the proper amount of unprocessed food in healthy amounts on a daily basis. That would cure pretty much, not every case, but pretty much virtually every case of obesity in the world. And yet, we just pretend it's not here. We look the other way. Oh, I don't want to fat shame. I don't want to shame anyone. I want to keep people from dying. I want to help people build habits so that they live healthy, productive lives. It's not about shame. I don't want you to feel shame. But if you're doing something that is destroying your life, destroying your body, destroying your health, the first step has got to be to recognize it. If I came into you every day saying, Wow, I did too much heroin last night. Wow, I did way too much cocaine last night. I can't think. I drank 4 bottles of wine this morning. I'm drunk. I can barely stand. Ha, ha, ha. Would you say, well, we have to be accepting. We don't want to alcohol shame TJ. If he wants to drink 4 bottles of shame, there's no one right amount. I don't think that's what you would say. It's certainly not what you would say to family members, someone you really care about. I think you would stage an intervention. Not shame the person, but try to intervene so they don't kill themselves. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we, certainly in America and a lot of the Western world, are killing ourselves one bite and one sip at a time with more and more and more sugar and more fat and more salt and more calories every single day. It's causing high blood pressure, heart disease, sleep apnea, metabolic syndrome, fatty liver disease, osteoarthritis, gallbladder diseases, kidney disease, pregnancy problems, and cancers. And yet we're not taking it seriously. What is the solution? I would love to hear from you. You've heard me talk about this before. I would love to hear from you as to what you think it would take for people to treat obesity at the same level of seriousness of the coronavirus. Because obesity is not a theoretical risk. Coronavirus, other than the several thousand people who have died, it's a theoretical risk for the world. And it certainly pays attention to worry about theoretical risks. But why can't we pay attention to an actual, real risk today that is slaughtering basically as many people as died in 9/11 every hour of the day, and we don't take it seriously. Special hello to our friends joining us on TikTok. We're having some technical problems. That's why you are seeing me looking at you from the side, and you're coming to us today through my phone. So comedian Muffy writes, you are correct. Well, thanks, Muffy. But what's the solution, though? I don't get any credit for being correct. What do you think the solution is? How do we get the world to take seriously this epidemic, this pandemic of obesity in the way people are taking seriously the coronavirus? Whether they're doing the right things is for other health experts to weigh in on, but people are definitely thinking about it, talking about it, worrying about it. So, comedian Muffy, that's my question to you. How do we actually get people to pay attention to it? Maxim has joined us on TikTok as well, plus our Bradley. Peggy Sue has joined us, and Prince Marco. Prince, thanks for saying hello, and Prince is asking what's up. I won't say agitated, I'm not upset. I'm just confused as to why the world spent so much time focusing on a theoretical health problem that right now is not hurting many people compared to an actual, real disease that is wiping out millions of people, obesity. I'm a little bit, I guess, shocked and challenged by how I could even be a part of getting people to take this more seriously. So that's what I'm thinking about, Prince. I'd love to hear from you and what you think could or should be done on this issue. All that and more today. We're not just going to talk about obesity today. We'll be talking about all sorts of other habits and some bright, fun habits, some positive habits too. Let's say hello, Matt. Matt's Food Insider, one of our regulars here on the program, is saying hello. In the presentation course, TJ, you talked about TED Talks. Do you have any personal experience in TED Talks? Well, Matt, I do train people all over the world before their TED Talks. And I watch a lot of TED Talks. And I have a course on Udemy and other platforms specifically on how to deliver a TED Talk. I personally have not delivered a TED Talk, and I'll tell you exactly why. My whole philosophy in where we are in 2020 and going back to 2015 and before is I have structured my life to not deal with gatekeepers. I love TED Talks. If they called and invited me, I would speak, but I simply do not invest my time and energy pitching myself to gatekeepers. For so much of my life, I spent pitching my creative energies to major book publishers, to major TV networks, radio networks, and for so many years, it was just constant rejection. And while I've gotten on more than 2,000 national and regional TV broadcasts, network broadcasts, I've been on every major network, I've probably pitched myself to 10,000 shows. So it's so much work and effort. What I believe is the most effective thing to do in the modern world is create your own speeches, media content, presentations, videos, spread it out to as many places in the world as possible. Then someone wants to invite you, I go on. So I don't pitch myself to the media anymore or to any gatekeepers. I simply put my ideas out there, and then I wait for people to contact me. The other aspect of TED Talk is they typically don't have people talk about something as sort of specific and practical as public speaking tips. And for so many decades, I was known primarily as the public speaking media training expert. So it was a bit of a pigeonhole. For the last couple of years, I have transitioned my own career into a broader personal development path where I help people build stronger personal habits to help them become more creative, find purpose in their life, find more meaningful life, become healthier. So I may at some point be seeking more speaking opportunities on these personal development themes. But if you're looking to speak at TED Talk, my main bit of advice is don't wait for TED to call. Speak anywhere and everywhere you can. Hone your craft. Hone your ability to get people to really pay attention to your message. One of the most successful TED Talks ever was Al Gore's speech on global warming and climate change. It was even turned into a movie that won an Oscar. But what people don't realize is he'd given that speech thousands of times for 20 years before he ever gave the speech to TED Talks. So speak on something you have passion for, where you are trying to help the world. I have had many clients come to me and ask them to prepare them for TED Talks. So if it's something you're interested in, you may want to check out my online course. And if you have other questions, certainly within the course or right here on this show, you can ask your questions, even post your videos for a critique. So Matt, thanks for joining us today. Let's check in with our good friends on Facebook. Sai writes in, says namaste from India. And again, special thanks to all of our good friends on India, because this show does not start live until about 11 p.m. India time. So really appreciate you staying up late at night, Sai. Hope that's going well. Sai says, I'm a pure vegetarian. TJ, I suggest people don't eat non-vegetarian. I suggest to eat green vegetables, tomato, potatoes, etc. Well, Sai, great advice. Certainly, even if you don't want to become a pure vegetarian, increasing the proportion of your caloric intake coming from vegetables is a great habit. It's one I try to follow as well. I am a meat eater. I eat fish, I eat beef, I eat chicken, I eat almost any kind of animal that is prepared. But to me, the key is portion size. If you're having a nice meal, it's a great idea to try to fill up 2/3 of your plate with vegetables, with salad. And then when you are eating meat, it should be no larger than a deck of cards. That's the portion size. You go to a typical American steakhouse, and it's like, do you want the 32 ounce? Do you want the 64 ounce? Do you want the 82 ounce? Some restaurants here in the United States even give you a prize if you finish a certain steak that's, say, 100 ounces. It's basically a breeding ground for obesity. It's like telling people, we'll give you a prize if you drink 8 bottles of wine in one sitting. Now, typically, a restaurant wouldn't want to do that. It would be seen as destructive to someone's health. But for some reason, encouraging people to eat a 92-ounce steak is considered fine. Even 8 ounces. I mean, in most restaurants in the United States, the smallest steak you can get is 8 ounces. And according to most dietitians and nutritionists, that's still a good 20, 30, 40% bigger than the largest helping of meat you should have in a day. Our portions are out of control. But Sai, you do bring up a good point. Simply eating vegetarian dramatically decreases your chances of becoming obese. However, there are vegetarians, certainly here in the United States and other places, who are obese because, yeah, they're not eating hamburgers all day long. But if you're eating potato chips, French fries, processed food, candy, sugar, things from boxes and bags, you're still going to become obese even if you never taste meat at all. So it's not enough to simply say, I won't eat meat. You need high quality food. You need at least real food. And you need to avoid the processed food and all the processed sugar and chemicals and garbage and processed flours that go into most foods that we're offered in our convenience stores and grocery stores if you want to stay away from this trap of obesity. So Sai, thanks so much for joining us. Special hello to all of our friends joining us across the internet, across the web today, whether you're joining us from TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Periscope, Twitch, Mix. We're on all of these platforms, up live. Whatever platform you're on right now, I appreciate you taking a little time with us to talk about how to have good habits and build good habits. If you have any questions you'd like to pose to me and the rest of the community here, just type them in wherever you are. While you're doing that, I do want to share some comments and questions that came in from many of our community members and our viewers and listeners overnight. These were posted on various social media. One of our good friends of the show, Fortune Tribes, is a regular on Instagram. He was responding to one of my posts. I put out the question of the day, or actually it was my video this morning, my short form video, saying you need to question everything. Until you learn how to question everything in life, you're not really at your peak potential. So Fortune writes and says, I do question daily on what I'm learning in order to get better, to better myself. Your tip sounds amazing. Well, Fortune, thanks so much. Appreciate your kind comments and appreciate you regularly checking in on the Instagram platform. I have to confess, I was late to the game when it comes to Instagram. It's been around now a long time. I didn't really start posting and getting active there till just a few months ago, and have been pleasantly surprised by how dynamic that community is. So, Fortune, thanks so much for your kind words there. This next comment comes in on Facebook, one of our newest community members right here. This is from Teklu Burayu, who writes, how do I change myself? Well, that is a very big question, Teklu, and you could argue that this entire show is based on answering that question. How do we change ourselves? Everyone can be a little bit different. Some people like to change through reading, some by experiencing, some by reflecting, some through changing their physical environment, or all of those combined. But Teklu, I hope you're watching today, and I hope you can be a part of this community, because every single day we are about sharing new techniques, new experiences on how you can create change. And just briefly, the biggest contribution I have in this area is to use the same techniques that advertisers use. All of us are bombarded all day long with radio ads, video ads, TV ads, digital ads, trying to change our behavior. Coke bombards us with their imagery because they want us to drink Coke instead of water. McDonald's bombards us with images and radio and TV and print ads because they want to change our behavior from eating a nice, healthy banana or apple to eating a Big Mac and a fried apple pie. So we are bombarded all day long with marketing campaigns, advertising campaigns from major corporations trying to change our behavior. So my contribution to this is I've created a system to help you advertise to yourself what you want. The system I use is called Selfie Speak Programming. You simply take your cell phone, create an audio, and tell yourself what habits you want to practice each day. My other innovation is the selfie media program. You take selfie pictures of yourself doing the things you want to do on a daily basis, and you just look at those photos in a photo album each day. I did it this morning. I did it yesterday. I've been doing it for weeks now, where I look at pictures of the things I want to do each day. I look at pictures of myself doing push-ups because I want to remind myself to do push-ups every day. I take a picture of myself dictating a column about habits because I want to remind myself that every single day I write 500 to 1,000 words on habits. So those are some of the techniques. We'll be coming back to a lot more, and that really is the running theme of this show. So I appreciate TechWheel you joining us, and I hope you get a lot out of the course. I see Bonica has joined us on TikTok, so thanks so much for stopping by. Also, Non-Newtonian has joined us, plus Cowdig on TikTok. So hello to all of our good friends on TikTok. And by the way, if you're seeing me for the first time on TikTok, we are here every single day, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Typically, you're not seeing me stare off into space. You would be seeing me through our main live feed. But today, we don't have that, so sorry about that. If you could do me one favor, and please take a look at some of my videos on my TikTok channel. And those of you who are watching on Facebook, on Instagram, any of the other platforms, typically you can experience me through this live platform, this live show each day, which allows you to ask your questions, comment, and we have more of an exchange. But also on every one of these platforms, I'm typically posting one 15-second video every morning, something about habits to just get you thinking, to start the discussion going, to stimulate conversation and thought and get people focused on building better habits. That's what we're all about here. I'm TJ Walker. This is The Habit Influencer. I'll be back in just a moment.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
Welcome back to The Habit Influencer. I'm your host, TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me. We are live. It is Thursday, February 27th, 2020. I am happy to be broadcasting today from the greater New York City area. I'm based in Long Island. My colleague Marceau is a little further south from me in the Philadelphia region today. And you are in India, in Africa, in Europe, South America, and all over the world. So I appreciate you joining me, whatever time zone you're in. By the way, I picked the 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. time zone because I just figured it would be easier for me. And I realize that sounds selfish, but one good habit I do believe in as a communicator is to always try to figure out what works for your audience best. You can be the greatest public speaker in the world, but if you're about to do a 3-hour workshop and the room is freezing and everyone is like this, you're not going to connect. So I do want to at least give you the opportunity of weighing in of what do you think would be the most convenient time for you. It doesn't mean I can change it right away, but do you like this time as the time for the show? Let me know. You can post your comments right there, whether you're on TikTok, whether you're Facebook, LinkedIn, Periscope, any place. If you could pick any time in the world for me to be on, what time would it be? And if you want to give it in your time zone, fine. If you can convert it to Eastern time, might make it even easier. But how many hours earlier than this show or later than this show do you think would be the best? Because who knows? If I may like it 1 to 3, but if 90% of the audience would really prefer it 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., I might be persuaded to change. So I am listening to you at all times. Let's hop into some more questions from regular viewers and community members like you. This one comes from Sam. It says, thank you so much for the course. Sam is a student in my journalism TV reporter news anchor course, How to Look Your Best on TV. And Sam says, thank you so much for this course. I want to become a TV presenter, but I do not know what to do in this course. How can I begin? Which material is suitable for me? Because I start by reading media training from A to Z, and I found it wasn't just for TV presenters. So could you please give me a good book to read to become a TV presenter, or could you give me exercises on how to do it? Thanks so much. Well, the number one exercise, Sam, I have for you is to start reporting on video. You can report in 15-second updates on TikTok. You can do 2-minute, 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute reports on your own YouTube channel. Now, there certainly was a time when I was growing up, you wanted to be a TV anchor or a TV reporter. There was a very set way of doing it. Typically, you would go to journalism school, although not always. You would then get a job in a really, really small town, in a small state, and chase ambulances and go to school board meetings and make $9,000 a year. And you would do that for a couple of years. Then you'd work up to the next bigger market, and then the next bigger market. And then maybe you would do news anchoring on the weekends, or you would fill in or substitute. Do a good job on that. Then you'd be the regular news anchor on the weekends. Pay your dues, and then you would become the anchor for the 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock Monday through Friday news. That's the old way of doing it. That's not the way it's done anymore, for the most part. First of all, local news is dying. They're losing their advertising base. And major networks, minor networks, TV stations around the country are reducing staff, reducing overhead, reducing salaries. If you want to be a TV reporter, a TV anchor, my advice is just do it. Don't worry about having the stamp of approval from some network or some TV station. Just start doing your own thing online. One role model for that, some of you may have heard of, is the Young Turks. It's an online news program, and it has billions of views on YouTube. And it was just created from scratch by a guy who wanted to do talk shows, wanted to have his opinions heard, wanted a voice, couldn't really get anyone to hire him. And he just started doing, first it was radio and then video, and then it's been on cable networks before, but it's primarily an online platform. And he buys his own cameras, he buys his own teleprompters. He doesn't have to wait for a TV network. And they've put together something that is sustainable, that pays people salaries, launches careers, and reaches millions of people. So that's really my advice to you, is don't just tell yourself, oh, I want to be the BBC anchor, or I want to be the CNN anchor. Focus on being a great reporter on areas where you have a passion, and cover that story. Go deeper and deeper. If you have to go out and interview people, do that. If you're doing analysis and commentary, do that, but establish a niche. Perfect role model is the main media correspondent for CNN. This was a guy who just in college started writing a newsletter, a blog about the news business, about cable TV, about pundits and talk show hosts. And he didn't wait for someone to hire him. He just started doing it. He started blogging, he started creating media, and after a while, he grew a following. He became so respected as a journalist covering the media that CNN actually did hire him. And they gave him his own show on the weekends talking about the media. So he was able to catapult way, way ahead, much faster than journalists who'd been in the business for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, because he focused and specialized at a very young age, and he developed true expertise. That, I think, is the future of being a network anchor, a news anchor, and an on-camera performer. Are there exceptions? Sure. In the United States, there is the ABC network, always been one of the top 3 networks in the United States for half a century. They still have an evening newscast. It's getting ratings, not better than ever, but better than they have in recent years. And they have classic anchors. David Muir is someone who has the most perfect head of hair you've ever seen in your life. And he's been a reporter his whole life. I've even seen footage of him.
I love David Muir.
Marceau says he loves David Muir.
Him and Tom Yavas, they get me every time.
And I've seen footage of David Muir in junior high school. And I remember seeing the clip of that, like, you're not going to believe what David Muir was like in junior high school. And I thought, oh boy, they're going to show how callow he was and goofy looking and thin, reedy voice and scared looking. I looked at the video, exactly as good back then as he is today. He was perfect from an extremely early age. That's rare, folks. But I don't think that model is going to work well anymore. For him to get to the anchor chair in 2020, he was starting that whole process 20, 30 years ago. You've got to focus on today of where the world is going to be 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And I think the world is going to belong to people who are self-starters and creators. You've heard me mention this name before. I'll mention him again. Gary Vaynerchuk is essentially a talk show host and an anchor and a reporter. Now, he doesn't use those terms himself. He doesn't think of himself as a news anchor. But he has millions and millions and millions of people watch him on video speaking about important stuff every month. Isn't that what a news anchor is trying to do and supposed to do? He just started creating it. He started using an old flip camera to do his show, where he anchored a show about wine some 15 years ago. And it took off from there. He built the habit of going deep and communicating about something he had a real passion for on a daily basis. And because of that, opportunities kept on growing and growing and growing. So good luck to you with your journalism, media, and anchor career, but realize you don't have to wait to be anointed. You don't have to wait for the gatekeepers to open up. Just start doing it right now. Let's say hello to, looks like Calda has joined us, plus Science Start has joined us as well. So Science, thanks for joining us today on the Habit Influencer. We have other friends joining us on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So thanks so much for joining us there. A story caught my eye today. It's related to what we were talking about earlier with obesity, but from another perspective. Here's the headline in today's New York Times for a column. The diet industrial complex got me and will never let me go. I did not see the body positivity movement coming, not at all. This person talks about all of her trials and tribulations growing up as a chubby kid, her love of butter, cookies, ice cream, hamburgers, and how she kind of faced what she felt was insecurity her entire life from being overweight, and all the things pitched to her, all the diets that were pitched. Things like she had to eat cottage cheese, hard-boiled eggs, all sorts of other diets she tried. And she basically talked about this problem of the whole diet industrial complex. And it got me thinking, are we really focused on the right things? So that is our topic A for today. And I just want to make sure we have enough time. We have just enough time for this, Marceau. Topic A, are we focused on the real problems in the world? Are we focused on the habits that are genuinely getting us into trouble? Item, headline in the New York Times. The diet industrial complex got me. Well, yes, there is a diet industrial complex. The Jenny Craigs, the Weight Watchers, the snack bits, all the things trying to sell you quick diets, get thin quick, thinner thighs in 30 days. If you add up all the quack diet books, all the programs that want you to pay monthly money to come have meetings with them, all the magazines that have covers about the latest celebrity going on a grapefruit diet or a juice cleanse. Yes, there is a diet industrial complex, and much of it is nefarious. So much of it is about spinning this idea that there's some magic pill, these magic green coffee beans, this little pill, this little strap around. If you just do this one thing, you'll be the perfect weight. And it is a multi-billion-dollar complex. And it's absolutely a problem because much of it is no good. Much of it is just snake oil. So I have some sympathy for the author talking about being a victim of the diet industrial complex. But it made me sort of stand back a moment and reflect. Is this the biggest industrial complex that's causing us a problem? I would argue there is a much, much bigger industrial complex that is terrorizing people, destroying lives, even killing people. I'm talking about the snack industrial complex. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, there is such a thing as a snack industrial complex. The makers of M&Ms, of pretzels, of candy, everywhere. Yeah, you can go into a grocery store or a convenience store, and you may find one or two books on diets, and you may go to the back of the corner of the store, a typical 7-Eleven, and maybe see a few celebrity magazines where the cover is a story about the latest fad diet. So it's in there. But what else is in that typical 7-Eleven convenience store? Snack after snack after snack. Every kind of chocolate snack, every kind of candy snack, every kind of pretzel, cracker snack. There is this giant, it's probably more like $1 trillion industry, not $1 billion industry of people creating snacks, corporations creating snacks, all pushing this idea that it would basically be a crime if you ever went more than an hour without shoveling something down your mouth. That is what I call the snack industrial complex. And when you look at death, destruction, misery, human carnage, it's 1,000 times bigger than the diet industrial complex. So I ask you, I challenge you to think about, are we focusing on the right corporate conspiracies? Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think this is done behind closed doors. But it is what different organizations, corporations are doing for their own benefit. But it's not a conspiracy. It's right out in the open. Coca-Cola tells us right on the package, here's all the sugar that's going to be in it. And here's all the other chemicals we put in it. You buy a little Debbie's snack cake, and right on the package, it's not conspiring in private and secrecy, right on the package it says we've got all this sugar, all this salt, all this fat, all this bleached processed flour in it, and It's got way more than you need for all the junk in your body on a daily basis, and it's got basically none of the nutrients you need to be healthy. So it's right out in the open. It's not hidden. And that is the snack industrial complex. So my challenge to you, how do we get people to treat the snack industrial complex seriously? We are bombarded all day long with images, marketing messages, text, billboards, TV ads, radio ads, telling us essentially, don't drink water. Now, it's not said in that many words, but the whole idea is Coke adds life. It's the real thing. Pepsi's for young, hip people. Mellow Yellow will pick you up. We get all these images, all these marketing messages begging us, drink this thing out of this bottle, out of this can, and whatever you do, don't drink water. That is the snack industrial complex. Many of us can go through an entire day between office, home, travel. We are constantly thrust food in our face. Everyone else at your office is having a coffee break with bagel and donuts at 10:30, and they're right there in the office, and some client dropped it off. It's right in front of you. It's so easy to eat those donuts, those muffins, those bagels. And maybe it's not as bad as a donut. Maybe it's a whole wheat bagel and you're not putting cream cheese on it. But if you're just putting in so many extra calories for a snack and you're not working in the field all day long, you don't need all those extra calories. That's the problem. Afternoons, the same thing. Hey, it's 3 o'clock. Let's go down, get a coffee. Oh, having coffee, of course, it has to have cream and sugar. You know what goes well with cream and sugar and coffee? Let's get a donut, a bagel, a chocolate chip cookie. Snack, 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 snack all day. This didn't happen 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. For the most part, even 35 years ago, it didn't happen. I'm old enough to remember there was a time you could go to a gas station. You couldn't pay by credit card. You'd walk up to the person working there, pay cash to buy your gas, and you were not inundated with 50,000 snack products saying, buy me, it's cheap, it's easy, get these crackers, get this popcorn with caramel and chocolate on top. You could just buy gas. You weren't given this overture to consume and guzzle snacks and sugary drinks all day long. So that's my challenge to you. How do we get people, I don't want to seem insensitive. Certainly there are bullies out there who want to mock someone for their personal appearance. That's not what I'm about. I do not believe that shame is an especially useful human emotion. I don't want to shame someone because of their body size. But if someone is preoccupied with the threat of the diet industrial complex, and they're not worried about the snack industrial complex, I think there's a real problem for that person and for society. What do you think? Again, this is a touchy area. I'm not asking you to name names. I don't want to mention the names of any celebrities who might seem to be battling with obesity or consuming too many snacks. But those of you with family members who snack all the time and their health is reflecting that, is there any delicate way of bringing this up? Is there any way of helping people? Because right now, the current culture says if you have a close family member who is a Coke addict, a heroin addict, a 4-bottle-a-day of wine addict, it's perfectly acceptable and indeed basically required, if you want to be a good parent, good family member, to stage an intervention. Get them, put them in some type of a detox clinic, even if it's against their will initially. Even have them committed because they are killing themselves. But if you have a family member who's obese, the popular culture is, oh, you can't do that. Oh, no, we must be body accepting. Well, I'm in favor of accepting all human beings. But I'm not in favor of saying that some forms of human behavior that are destructive and kill people are bad and we should stop that, but other forms of human destructive behavior that kill people are fine and we have to look the other way and pretend it doesn't exist. It seems like a tremendously odd contradiction. What do you think? I want to hear from you, because I don't have all the solutions for this. I don't have the perfect way to talk to friends or family members who are suffering obesity, and it's clear that they're suffering obesity because they really like to eat snacks all day long, and they like to eat processed food all day long, and they like to drink sugar-filled drinks and consume too much. And hey, I'm not saying this is holier than thou. I used to be 35 pounds heavier, but it wasn't some virus I caught in the air. I was 35 pounds overweight because I ate too much food. I ate the equivalent of 5 meals a day. I had lots of sugar and cream in my coffee. So I'm not holier than you or anyone else. At some point I decided I wanted to change my habits, and I did. How do you think we can help more people change their habits so that they're not killing themselves prematurely? I would love to hear your opinions. Our good friend JM from Afghanistan has joined us. JM, good to hear from you today. Good to see you joining us. JM says, I don't like snacks too because they bring too much quick, sudden change. Yeah, you have you have this sugar high, or you're drinking some mochaccino that's got lots of sugar and fat and lots of caffeine. It can spike your energy, can bring you up, but then it can bring you back down to even lower. And that can create this chain reaction of more and more snacking, more and more food, binge, bust, binge, bust. So JM, you do live in a different part of the world. I am curious, because I've traveled to 35 countries. I've not been to your country. How prevalent is it to find junk food in your country? Is Kentucky Fried Chicken in your country? I don't know. It's rare that I've been to a country that didn't have Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's all over the place. But I am interested in your country, in Afghanistan, if that's where you are at the moment. I know sometimes you're in other countries too. Are you finding the snacks everywhere, or is that something that you're not seeing in your country yet? Jay, and we'll give him time. And if we don't get to you before the break, we will read your response in the second hour. We're coming up to the close of the first hour of the program. Lots more coming in hour two, different topics, and I promise I'm not going to talk about obesity and food all day long the second hour. There's other topics. When we come back, I'll be talking about a strange habit that David Beckam, the famed soccer football player, has that his wife doesn't understand at all, but I would argue is a good habit. So we'll be talking about some good habits in hour two of the program, plus your comments, your questions, your thoughts, and more of the community. We'll be hearing from our friends on TikTok, on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, and all the rest. I'm TJ Walker. You're watching The Habit Influencer. More to come. We'll be back at 3 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Hour 2 of The Habit Influencer. I'm TJ Walker, your host. Thanks for joining me. This is the program where we talk about how to build good habits to empower your life. Let's hop over to Facebook. Our friend and regular JM has commented. JM says, I personally don't like those foods. We're talking about snack foods and junk food that is horribly nutritionally disastrous for people. JM says, I don't like that food. At the time I heard your guide and tips, I just stopped. Well, JM, thanks so much. I'm glad I was able to be helpful there. And a continued good luck and good health to you. So much of health is luck, but a lot of it isn't. I mean, I could get run over by a truck tomorrow. Any of us could. You could. My own mother was healthy every day of her life, never sick once, and then boom, stroke at 75, keeled over and was dead. Everyone else in her family had much worse health habits, dietary habits, exercise habits. They lived in their 90s. So part of it is luck, but part of it is your daily habits. And JM, you are exactly on the right track if your habits include not eating junk food and instead trying to eat as many fresh vegetables, real food, real fruit as possible. So keep up the good work. Let's switch over to something a little more lighthearted. This story is coming to us from United Kingdom, a Metro newspaper. It's about David Beckam, the British soccer football star who does live in America some of the time. He revealed on a late night talk show that his wife mocks him and laughs at him for one of his habits. And the habit is he loves playing with Legos. Now, I liked to play with Legos when I was a small child. Most of the time, people think of Legos as something a little kid plays with. My own daughter, 6 years old, has Legos. But David Beckam is not 6 years old. He is, I forgot how old, he's probably around 40, I guess. And it turns out he loves playing with Legos. He's built a Hogwarts princess. He's built a Hogwarts castle. He's built Jeeps. He has an amazingly huge Lego collection. Apparently he stays up at night, plays with Legos. And he does this with his kids. And he says he's been doing it since he was 8, 9 years old. He still does it. He talks about how his wife laughs at him for his Lego obsession. But here's the point. He says, it calms me down when I'm making it. Good for you, David Beckam. If you can create something, make something, use your hands, make something, calms you down. Now, I'm guessing when he's doing that, he's not necessarily watching TV, multitasking, texting, looking at TikTok videos, even though we love people who look at TikTok videos. He could focus on one thing. This is important, and I applaud David for not trying to make it sound like he's doing something really cool. It doesn't sound that cool for a middle-aged man to be playing with Legos, and yet he's not afraid to talk about it. He's doing something. It's a creative outlet for him. It's a stress-reducing outlet for him. Good for him. Here's my question to you. What do you do that reduces your stress? What do you do that maybe other people consider childlike? You've heard me mention, I like to doodle. I do a little drawing every day. Nobody's impressed by it. I show it to my wife and daughter. They're like, oh, that's awful. Get it away. I'm not winning any art awards, but it's just a little fun thing I do, and it's a little creative outlet. So I want to know, and I appreciate you tuning in, watching, and listening, but I want to hear from you more. Tell me, what exactly do you do that calms you down, that's creative, that isn't just sitting down, putting your feet up and watching TV or YouTube? I'd like to know something you do that's just a little bit out of the ordinary. If you do anything, please feel free to share that with us. So, David Beckam, I hope you keep it up. If you're 90 years old and playing with your Legos and it makes you happy, there's a lot worse things celebrities can do and anyone else can do too to occupy their time. So this sounds pretty harmless. And something tells me if that's the worst thing your wife has to complain about, she's probably pretty happy with you if you're staying at home and playing with Legos. So not really a problem. What do you want to talk about today? I have several prepared topics. I'm going to go in depth with some of them in just a moment. But if you have any other topics, suggestions you want to address as it relates to habits, please let me know. I want to share some viewer mail, one of our community members. This is from Abashik Dixit, who was a student in my Complete Communication Skills course. And Abhishek writes, how do I remember my points during presentations? Now, this is a very common question. People obsess over this. They either want to memorize, they want to write everything down and try to read it, or read from a teleprompter, or read from bullets on a bullet point on a PowerPoint slide. All of those things are generally horrible things to do when you're giving a presentation. TJ, I face this problem every time I do a presentation. I prepare for a presentation, I jot down my points to speak. As soon as I start presenting, I become so nervous that I forget my main points or their sequence and bomb it. When I've finished my presentation, then I say to myself, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. You're second guessing yourself. Please suggest how I can improve on this aspect. My suggestion is single sheet of paper, bullet points in sequence. That way, if you forget, you just glance down and look at your notes. I happen to have a horrible memory, but when I'm giving a keynote speech in front of 500 or 1,000 people and I'm speaking for 90 minutes, I don't remember anything. I don't memorize anything. I'm not looking at notes on a PowerPoint slide. I walk around the room and I look at people and I have an in-depth conversation with them, and I cover all the points I wanted that I planned in advance in the sequence I want. And I cover all the slides that I wanted to in the sequence I want. And again, I don't have a very good memory, but I'm able to do it because I give myself a roadmap on a sheet of paper. And the advanced technique is I have 3 identical sheets of notes placed around the room in different places. Large font so that I don't have to pick it up and touch it. Only 2 or 3 words so I'm not tempted to look down here and try to read entire sentences. So Abhishek, if you try that, it will solve your problems. And putting it all together, what's really going to help is if you practice your presentation on video until you are comfortable with everything and you really like how it's coming across. The number one habit you can build if you want to be a great presenter, a great public speaker, a great TED talker, as Matt's mentioned in the previous hour, is to practice your speech on video until you love what you see. Speaking of TED Talks, every time I'm preparing someone for a TED Talk, that's what we do. We practice on video again and again and again until they think they're great and I think they're great. And then it becomes virtually impossible to be nervous about the speech. At that point, everything is in a groove. And if you want to use a single sheet of notes, no one's really going to care. Even for a TED Talk, people do sometimes. Just don't hold it, don't touch it, and you will be in good shape. We have plenty of other big news stories I want to talk about today that relate to habits, how to have better habits. That's the theme of our show here. How you can influence your own habits to build a better life, to build a more fulfilling life. That is exactly what we are about right here every single day. I want to switch now to our topic B, the next big topic, and it relates to foundational habits. Topic B, building foundational habits for every sphere of your life. There's almost an infinite number of good habits you could have on a daily basis. You could have 50, 100, 200. You could segment thousands of little habits you aspire to follow on a daily or weekly basis. But at some point, you run out of time. You can't do all of those. That's why it is crucial for you to determine 1 to 3 foundational habits for every major sphere in your life. When it comes to your health, that's one major sphere of life. I would say there are 3 important habits. You have to get into the habit of getting a good night's sleep, 8 full hours of sleep, eating healthy food in the right amount of portion size, and number 3, exercising. If you take care of those 3 foundational habits every single day, then it doesn't matter if you maybe miss another 5 or 10 or 15 habits you aspire. Maybe you want to do sit-ups every day, you didn't get to it, but if you had a good night's sleep and you ate healthy food and you walked or got some other exercise, it doesn't matter that you skipped your sit-ups that day or your push-ups or you didn't go for a marathon or you didn't bike or even if you didn't get to the gym, because your foundational habits are so strong. I think you need that not just for your health, which gets a lot of attention in the habit world, but for every sphere of your life. For example, I believe one of the 7 core spheres of life with respect to your habits is about being creative. Every person who's trying to become really fulfilled, to really live a life with purpose, to really have a meaningful existence, needs to show creativity on a daily basis. How do you do that? There are hundreds of creative habits you could do. It's essential to isolate what is your foundational creative habit. And I was thinking just this morning of the great Seth Godin, very famous writer, blogger, speaker, marketer. Many of you have heard of him before. Here's a guy who's written dozens of books, gives speeches all over the world, conducts workshops all over the world, has his alternative MBA, he starts companies, he blogs every day, he does so many different things. He's basically a creative person. But what is his core foundational creative habit? Now, I haven't talked to him about this, but I do believe that if you asked him, he would say his core foundational creative habit is he writes every day. He writes 1 thought a day for his blog. Sometimes it's only a couple sentences. They're typically always less than 500 words, but he has a new post every single day. When you're thinking and writing and sharing your creativity with the world, that is a foundational creative habit. And I think if Seth Godin today stopped writing books, stopped creating new companies, stopped doing workshops, stopped doing alternative MBAs, and he just stuck to that, writing a blog, he would still be a creative person reaching millions of people around the globe with his creative ideas. It also would fund everything else he does because he has such a tremendous reach with his creative ideas coming out through his column that generates so much other revenue for him. Not from advertising, he doesn't even take ads on his blog. But that's what generates the speaking gigs, all the other things he does that are quite lucrative. If he stopped writing books and doing alternative MBAs and everything else, he'd still basically be rich just because of money that flows his way from this one core creative act of writing every day. And guess what? There's nothing stopping you or me from this one creative act as well. Writing every day and posting it on a blog. And it may be your blog, my blog won't become that successful, but how do we know until we try? So that's my challenge to you. What is your core foundational creative habit? Now, all of us have different things we like to think of as creative, and maybe at different parts of our life we were in a band, or we wrote music, or we started a novel once. There's all sorts of things we could do. It's important for you to isolate what is most important that you do on a daily basis. And if you couldn't do anything else, but just one creative habit, what would it be? So it caused me to reflect on what I do creatively every day. Every single day, I write 500 to 1,000 words for my own blog on habits. Every single day, I do one 15-second video that I put out on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and various places. Every day I do typically a 2-hour show, which I'm doing right now with you, where I talk about habits. Every day I write a question of the day and share with you on social media. An aphorism, a quote of the day I share with you. A practical tip of the day. So that's my creative output. I just listed those 6-8 things every day. And there's one other thing I do. I work on creating online courses. I shoot videos and write scripts and work on online courses every day. So looking at Seth Godin, trying to isolate what is likely to be his foundational creative habit, I tried to figure out what is my foundational creative habit. Because I like doing all of these things, and I love doing this show with you. But I asked myself, if I had to get rid of all of them and stick with one, what is the one where I'm able to reach the most people, help the most people, benefit the most people, also benefit myself? It is making online courses. As long as I spend 3 hours a day focusing making an online course, I'll basically always be able to reach people. My creative impulses can be shared with the world, and I can make a very nice living. Perhaps a year from now, I might tell you this show, because this show is still in its infancy. We're less than 2 months old. Perhaps I would say doing this show 2 hours a day is my primary creative habit. But as of right now, it's doing my online courses. I think it's important for all of us to do an inventory like this. So please, write down right now, share with me and the community here, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, whether you're watching this live or on demand on YouTube or Facebook. I want to hear from you. What is the single most important thing you do on a daily basis to express your creativity? Remember, creativity is when you take some idea from your brain and you put it in a format that other people can absorb, consume, enjoy, and experience. What is the foundational creative habit for you? Okay, that is the end of topic B. I appreciate you listening to my deep dive, my deep reflection on that. But please let me know. I enjoy talking, and I could talk, frankly, 20 hours a day. But I want to hear more from you. I love doing this show, but if I could have one wish come true, it would be that I hear from even more, because I know our data shows that often 1,000 or more are watching. But I want to hear more from you, your input, your thoughts, your reflections, because 2 minds are better than 1, and 3 and 4 and 1,000 are better than 1. Let's check in with our friend Dwayne on Facebook. Dwayne writes, TJ, my wife and I just joined the YMCA. Today we did our evaluations for the outcome we want. I'm 70 years old. My wife will be 68 next month. I want to gain about 15 pounds. Wife wants to lose about 15. I'm assuming that's pounds. I'm seeing a hashtag. I had an injury, so I was unable to be as athletic as I used to be for a few years. My weight loss was due to loss of muscle mass. We are both retired military, so we had an active lifestyle. Now we want to be healthy for our grandkids. I'll give you updates. Thank you for your advice over the years, Dwayne. Well, Dwayne, first of all, congratulations for joining the YMCA. Great organization. I have been a member of YMCA's, and as a kid have fond memories going to YMCA day camp in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you are underweight, 15 pounds underweight, I'm not saying congratulations, it's good to be underweight, but that's a comparatively rare problem to have in the Western world today. For most of human history, Being underweight was the norm. That was the biggest challenge. Most human beings simply did not have enough food. Scarcity was the norm. Food was rare and expensive in terms of your time or money. We now live in the reverse, where food is plentiful and costs relatively little money and relatively small amount of our time to make the money to pay for food. So it's a little bit of an anomalous situation there. I congratulate you for getting out there, joining, and trying to work on this and build your muscle mass up, your weight up. A lot of times people, I'm not saying 70 is old, but a lot of times people my age, younger, say, well, I'm too old, my body doesn't recover as quickly as it used to, I'm not a kid anymore, this is my body, I have to accept it. No, you don't. You can improve your strength at any age. There are people 92 years old who take up weightlifting and they're much stronger at 95 than they were at 65. The body is an amazing thing. I'm not saying that 90 is the new 60 or anything foolish like that, but the body can respond to conditioning, exercise, weight training at almost any age and get better. You might not become Mr. Olympia. I'm not going to become Mr. Olympia, but you can always make improvements. Dwayne, you're 70, but I like your attitude. You're looking for the future because you want to be around for your grandkids, college graduation perhaps, maybe your great-grandkids. You're feeling good now. Let's keep it up. Let's do what it takes to build your body to the point through strong daily habits so that you feel even better at age 80, at age 90, and at 100. Why not? So, Dwayne, keep it up. My only caveat is, as much as I like the Y, and I think their programs are very reasonably priced, if it's too much of a pain to get up and either walk or bike or drive to the gym, don't tell yourself the gym is the only way to work out. I personally can't stand to go to gyms. Driving, traffic, parking. So I make the world my gym. I go for walks in my neighborhood. I lift weights from home. I use a treadmill at home. And if it becomes too onerous or it's bad weather out, don't let that be an excuse not to exercise. That's my only caveat. But if you like going to the gym and you like the people at the gym, then do it. Recent research I've read about the YMCA is that one of their biggest attractions, the reason people go back and sign up for a second year and a third year, they like the community. You see some of the same people every day or 3 times a week. Maybe you enjoy the classes, the communal aspect of it. If that's what works for you, then do it, stick with it, go for it. Dwayne, wish you nothing but good health. I'm TJ Walker. This is The Habit Influencer. Appreciate you joining me today. We have a lot more to come. We have an entire 25% of the show left. Other top stories in the news that I want to share with you, including the 7 habits self-made millionaires swear by. This is courtesy of a website called the Good Men Project. And by the way, every time I'm referencing a particular story, I'm sharing the link with you too. I'm not asking you just to believe everything I say. You should check it out. So in the show notes on Facebook and on YouTube and most of the other platforms, I share with you my source material, the URL of the site. So this is a story from the Good Men Project, and they surveyed a number of millionaires, and they asked them, what habits do you think made you this way? Number 1 on the list, they read. Not sexy, not glamorous, not surprising, I understand that. But really successful people read a lot, and they read books. Bill Gates reads books. Warren Buffett reads books. They're not just reading the newspaper. They're not just reading Facebook. And no offense to TikTok, they're not just reading TikTok comments. They're reading actual, real, serious books. That is number 1 on the list. Habit number 2 of successful millionaires in the world. They have a mentor. A mentor is someone that has done what you want to do and knows the pitfalls and mistakes most people make. I've heard it said that the pros succeed simply because they make fewer mistakes than everyone else. That's the power of having a mentor. They save you valuable time and energy. And you may be thinking, well, I'm in this poor country, or I'm in this place, I don't know any mentors. I think the beauty of the modern world now is you can have mentors anywhere in the world. They might not talk to you every day, but you can learn from them. You can read their books. You can follow them on Twitter. You can follow their insights. And you can benefit from them. I've never met Gary Vaynerchuk, the social media entrepreneur and wizard. But I feel like he is a mentor of sorts because I've read all of his books and I've watched so many of his videos and I get his newsletter. Now, I don't copy everything he says, and I've tried some things that he's mentioned where I failed miserably. But he is someone who I do hear in the back of my mind as I try new social media ventures or promotions or new pieces of content. I hear him sort of telling me, well, TJ, you should try that and realize you might not get any traction for 6 months because I didn't. And so he is a mentor of sorts. And guess what? The price is right because I didn't pay anything. Well, I bought his books. I did pay for his books. But you don't even have to do that. You can find mentors anywhere and everywhere in the world. Now, if it's someone in real life, in person, all the better. And that is something I have to confess. I don't think I've had certainly people I like working with, people I learned from, but I can't say that I truly worked in any one organization where there was someone doing exactly what I wanted to do and they served as a personal, in-person mentor. Have you had a good mentor? If so, share the experience. Tell us if he says he didn't take a holiday in his entire 20s. He went like 11 years working 7 days a week. Now, for most people, that would cause a burnout, maybe a mental breakdown. But for him, it worked out. Mark Zuckerberg claims to have spent every day for 5 years coding. Things seem to have worked out for him. Habit number 6. This is one that does not get enough attention. Wildly successful people, millionaires and billionaires, they have the habit of saying no. They figure out what they're good at. They say no to everything else. Warren Buffett famously stresses this. People ask him what's his secret to success. He says no to most things that come along. He says no, 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 no. He says no to investment opportunities all the time. And his big quote is, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. I do believe that to be true, and it's something that I've tried to get a lot better about, and I think I'm pretty good at. I'm certainly not as successful as Warren Buffett, but I am pretty good about not wasting time on things other people want me to do that I don't think I can be a real value there. I try to focus on what's truly most important. For me, that's delivering a good show for you, creating great online courses, doing speeches and workshops and writing, and really not much else. The 7th habit of wildly successful people, they cultivate rich relationships. They try to really go deep with not just mentors, but other people in their industry, friends, family. They have meaningful, sustained relationships. They're not sitting home alone watching TV every night. They're not vacationing alone, typically. They're spending time with other people where they have real relationships. And those are the habits of wildly successful people, at least according to the author here at the Good Men Project. I'm TJ Walker. We're going to take one last break, then be coming back to you heading into the top of the hour. Back in just a moment.
This is a Chicken Beef Production.
To the Habit Influencer, I'm TJ Walker. We're headed into the final stretch of today's program, but still a lot more insights, information, tips, tricks, and tactics on how to have better habits in your life. Do you work from home? Do you know anyone who does? I do. In fact, I'm in my home right now. This is a studio in the first floor of my home. So I'm someone, for better or worse, has worked on my own and from home for, at this point, the majority of my career. I was a little earlier than a lot of people headed into the whole work at home movement. So I do have some experience there. I want to share with you my thoughts. But first, I wanted to look at some insights. This is courtesy of Medium.com, and they're using a story from Better Humans. And they've got lots and lots of specific tips on better habits you can have for working at home. And they dispel some myths too. They address the unproductivity myth. It's a pity many managers and often even regular employees demonize the concept of working from home, according to this author. Nicholas Bloom is an economics professor at Stanford University. He conducted a large-scale experiment to prove work from home works. Employees of a 16,000-person Chinese call center were randomly assigned to either work from home or at the office for 9 months. He found at-home working led to a 13% increase due to fewer breaks and sick days and more calls per minute, which he attributed to a quieter, more convenient workplace. So there is this myth out there, and I'm guilty of it occasionally. When I hear someone's working at home and they work for a big company, my first thought is, oh, now they can sleep late, goof off, do errands for the family, and only work 2 hours a day and get paid 8 hours. So everyone is still guilty of thinking that. I don't work for a bigger company, I work for myself. So if I don't work, it affects me more than anyone else. So there are some tips in this article. The place, where do you work? From home, or do you need to go to some other location, like a coffee shop? Going to coffee shops can be noisy. Some people work really well with background sound. That is up to you. For me, I do not like to work in coffee shops. Occasionally it's a way to get away, clear my head, but I actually do like working from home. Some people go as far as booking a hotel room if they're under a very severe writing deadline and they're trying to get a project done. Now that can be expensive too. You don't have to do that. This author goes through necessities you thinks you should have in your home office. Natural light, the ability to get fresh air quickly, a healthy lunch, electric sockets, good internet connections, a big enough desk, and the right level of noise. These are all important. Now, when you're planning to have a home office for the first time, it can be a bit of an adjustment. If you're used to working within the structure of a major corporation and having a boss standing over you, step one, according to this author, set quantifiable and measurable medium-term goals. Quantifiable and measurable meaning 3 to 6 months. Goals you can work towards so that you know what you're working on and you're not just floundering around. Your goals could include things like having a very specific income. You might want to launch an online course within 6 months. I would say that's giving yourself way too much time. Step two, according to this author, having monthly goals. These are more short-term goals and writing them down. And then step three, according to this author, plan your week every Sunday. Now, I'm going to dissent there. I like Sundays to be for fun and relaxation. Other than doing writing and reading, I don't like to do any kind of business planning on Sunday. But this author recommends you set out your weekly and even monthly goals on a Sunday, and it gives more structure. Step four, according to this author on Medium, plan your day the night before. I plan with no more than 6 to 7 hours of concentrated work every day. I do think it's good to plan in advance. I actually have my entire day blocked out on the calendar, typically in hour-long blocks. So from 1 to 3 each day, I have produce and host this show. From 3 to 4, I have conference call with my producer, Marceau, to talk about how we can make the next show better. Calls going through my database. And from 4 to 5, I have blocked out going for an hour-long walk every day. So I tend to have my entire day blocked out in hour segments, and includes things like a family hour for dinner, a family hour for entertainment, and very specific hours set aside for reading. The morning hours from around 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. is when I'm doing typically more than 100 different habits. Everything from drinking a glass of water to jumping jacks, you name it. That's how I like to structure my day. So I do believe it is important to have some structure. The author recommends being realistic, having legitimate goals that can be reached, and not just I'll be a multimillionaire in 6 months. The author also recommends the Pomodoro technique. Now, if you haven't heard of it, it's a time management method that was developed in the 80s. That's where you put a timer for 25 minutes on your desk. You concentrate intently for 25 minutes, and then you have a break for 5 minutes. After 4 of these 25-minute Pomodoros, you take a longer break for 15 minutes. I don't do it in that structured way, but I do like to get up, stand, walk around, go do some push-ups, go to the gym, do a quick run on the treadmill for 60 seconds. So I don't do it in quite a structured way, but I do think not just sitting at your desk at one prolonged period of time is a good idea. So I'm going to share with you more techniques in just a moment for our next segment, but I wanted to share with you what others thought. How do you structure your day when you're working from home? I would love to hear from you. So let me know about that, and we can share some tips together. Post on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can post on TikTok. You can post anywhere. I see that Scratch and Bears and Ronica have joined us on TikTok today. Thanks for joining us. If you have any tips on how to be more productive working from home, then please let me know. But I want to dive a little deeper into this segment, because I think for so many people, either you want to work from home or you're forced to work from home, and if you're not doing it now, in the next 5 years you will have to, so you might as well be prepared. So that leads us to topic C. What are the successful habits you need to have to be able to work from home on your own terms? The modern economy is changing every day. Corporations are downsizing. Corporations are looking to reduce overhead, putting an office above you, giving you administrative assistance, heating for you, air conditioning for you. Corporations don't want to do that anymore. And maybe they do, but you don't want to have to get in a car and drive and spend time in traffic every day and spend an extra half an hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours away from your family commuting. And yet, you still want to work. You still want to be productive. You want your creative efforts to be rewarded in the marketplace. What do you do? Well, the answer for me, and increasingly millions of people around the globe, is to work from home. Now, the problem is if you've never worked from home before, it can be too much freedom. Everybody says they want freedom, but if you're not used to freedom, it can cause paralysis. If you're used to colleagues coming in every second, having meetings every hour, a boss saying this is due at the end of the day, to all of a sudden be working from home, especially if it's your own business, can just have your head spinning. You don't even know where to start. And unfortunately, it can be too easy to start in the refrigerator. Oh, I'm a little bored, I'll start later. Let me start after this coffee break. Let me just have a snack. It's quite common for people who start working from home to put on 10, 15 pounds because the refrigerator is right there and there's no immediate deadline. The number one thing you have to do to be successful working at home, the number one habit you have to have, is to be able to motivate yourself, to give yourself deadlines, to give yourself structure of what you want to do during the day. I don't get up in the morning and think, oh, what am I going to do today? My day is fairly structured, and I've worked from home alone for many, many years. Now, I've also had offices and had staff and coordinated people, but for the majority of the last 25 years, I have worked from home. And I have to tell you, it's a wonderful experience if you structure it the right way. You have to have the right habits. The first big habit is you have to know what is your number one priority every day. And at different times of the day, what is your number one priority? I know when I get up, my number one priority is taking care of my habits that are going to propel me to success for the rest of the day. I quickly listen to my Selfie Speak program where I tell myself how I want my day to be, what habits I'm going to do. I watch my selfie media program of images showing myself what I'm going to do today. I quickly start writing 500 to 1,000 words as soon as I get up. I put on coffee, but I only drink 1 cup without cream and sugar. I put on tea. I drink a full glass of water. I do stretching exercises. I read. I reflect. I do 10 minutes of meditation. I'm doing all these things relatively quickly, and yet I'm enjoying myself. I'm relaxing myself. I know that at 8:30 every morning, I am going to go outside and put my daughter on the bus and see her off and give her one last hug. I know by 8:45 in the morning, I'm going to be producing a new video on habits to share with you and with people all over the globe on a dozen different social media outlets. At 9 a.m., I'm going to be at my desk, and I'm going to be doing deep work, creating new content for online courses. And I've got to do that for the next 3 years, with as 3 hours, with as few distractions as possible. At noon, I have to quickly shift gears and do rapid research to prepare for my online show that I'm doing with you now. I have to read every new news article that's come out on habits. I have to look at blogs. I have to prepare a script. And I have to eat a healthy lunch. That's what I do from noon to 1. And from 1 to 3, I'm doing this show. From 3 to 4, I am doing a recap of the show, talking to my producer, preparing for the next show, going through my database, calling clients, prospects, people who've inquired about hiring me for trainings and speeches. I try to do all of that as quickly as possible so that at 3:59, I'm done. I turn my computer off. And I mean literally power down my computer. And at 4 o'clock, I try to walk out of my office and go for a walk outside unless it's too cold or rainy. Now, this is still part of my workday. Probably the most important part of my workday is going for that walk for an hour, because that's when new ideas percolate up. That's when innovation occurs. So I'm not goofing off. It is a time for thought, reflection. So that takes me from basically 6 in the morning till 5 at night. That's 11 hours where every hour is structured. I also try to structure 5 to 6 for reading time, 6 to 7 for dinner, 7 to 8 family time, 8 to 9 typically watching part of a movie or stand-up comedy, 9 to 10 reading a paper book. That's my average default day. So for me, working from home is great. I save so much time by not commuting, by not having to go to meetings. I go to no meetings. This might not work for you. This might be too isolating for you. You've got to figure out what works for you. Other tips that make working at home successful: every single day, I take every scrap of paper off my desk from my TV studio and from my office. I empty the trash cans. When I come in to my office tomorrow morning, when I come into my TV studio, it's going to be completely clean. It puts me in a better frame of mind, reduces clutter, reduces confusion, and it's easier to think and focus. You've got to have the right tools. You have to have printers, computers, web, internet. You don't want to have to be running to Kinko's all the time. It's so much easier now than it used to be. When I had my first home office way back in the 1980s, you had to run to a convenience store to use a fax. Yes, this was before email. And this is before faxes were affordable for consumers to have. You have to go to the mailbox, go to a post office to mail things constantly because there was no email. Now the friction has been removed. But the biggest friction of all is distraction. Because if you're not careful, your computer can rob every ounce of creative energy in your brain. Because every kind of game is there. Every kind of entertainment news. Every kind of trash nonsense. Pornography, if you're into that. There's so many things you can do to waste your time online if you work from home and no one's standing over you. So it's not for everyone. But at some point, chances are it will be for you. And you may have the best corporate job in the world you love. Keep it up. But let's say you retire at 62 or 65, and your brain is still nimble, and you still want to be productive, and you still want to contribute to the world. You may have a home office from 65 to 95. So set it up now so that it works. Now, there's one school of thought that says you're better off doing all your work in one place. And so your brain isn't thinking, well, this is a fun place, this is a workplace. I've heard that from many people. I know for me, I like variety. So I like working from my TV studio for this show, producing videos. I have a main desk area I work with. But after the show, I like to do video conference calls from my great room upstairs. In the morning, I like to do my writing from a couch in the living room. When weather's nice, I'll do writing and phone calls from outside, the pool area or deck area. I like the variety. Others say, no, that confuses the brain. Now, where I don't work is in the bedroom. That can be just too much. You want to keep that separate, although I do read in my bedroom. I don't recommend that you try to manage every single second of your day or every minute of the day. Some management experts go as far as managing in 5-minute increments. I would feel like I'm in a straitjacket. I can't do that. But big hour blocks do work. They do work for me. And I do think that they work for most people. The biggest problem for people who work from home is sitting down at the desk, opening up that calendar, and seeing nothing. On the one hand, there's nothing on the calendar. On the other hand, there's 50 prospects you could call. There's 50 social media projects you could start. There's 50 topics of blog postings that you could start on. There's 20 old clients you could call. And it's sort of like, where do I start? It's overwhelming. You have to be able to put things in priority. You have to have a strategy. If you can't do that, you can spin your wheels at home, not get much done. And if it's your own business, not make much money. That's where the pressure occurs. And you got to get out of the house. For me, I'm fortunate enough, lucky enough, that I still do a great deal of travel and international travel, working with clients all over the world. So I don't get the cabin fever many people do when they work from home all the time, because I'm often traveling in different exotic locales for a week, sometimes 2 weeks at a time. If you don't do that, you've got to find an excuse to get out. You've got to find networking events, go to meetups, go to professional associations. Otherwise, you will go crazy unless it's just your natural disposition to be completely alone. And that's not most people's disposition. Working from home, having a home office, can be the greatest thing in the world if you build strong daily home office work habits. If you don't do that, it can become a prison. Build good habits for working at home, and you can be successful and live life on your own terms. And that is topic C. Marcel, what did you say there?
I said it takes a lot of discipline too. You can very easily, you're talking about you can easily, you have free time so you can slack off a little bit, but when you're like really, I call it in the zone. When you're really in the zone sometimes, you can work a little too much, and you have to kind of find
Well,
a balance
something I should have mentioned.
and not working too much.
Yeah, Marcel is absolutely right. It requires discipline, and something that most articles on this mentioned is you need a quitting time. Now, I did mention I actually have a set quitting time of 3:59 p.m. I say that, it sounds a little bit cutesy, but I try to hold to it because it makes me feel like I'm sort of getting out so much earlier than the rest of the world. I live in an area outside of New York City where people commute to the city, and quite often friends of mine, they don't get home till 8, 9 o'clock at night. By the time they've left their office at 5:36, long commutes. So I feel refreshed and invigorated when I get to leave my office at 3:59. It doesn't mean I never do anything productive, but I try to not actually go back down into my office and sit at the desk unless there is an extreme overriding reason somehow. The danger for many people who have home offices is when they first do it, they think, oh, great, I'm not going to have to work this horrible 40-hour work week. I can be my own boss and control my own shots and work less. And then they start their own business, work from home, and all of a sudden they're working 90 hours a week, and they're always on. You cannot be like that. You've got to have time when you're off. And that includes specifically turning your phone off. I don't mean on vibrate, I mean literally off. And certainly on do not disturb. My phone goes on to a do not disturb mode from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. each day. Do I occasionally miss a call from an important prospect calling from Dubai or Bangkok? Yes. But you know what? I call them back the next day. It doesn't really affect my business. But I'm not going to be on 24 hours a day, because that is the way to burn out. You've got to pace yourself. If you're working from home, it's a marathon. I want to be able to do this for the next 50 years, and I'm already 57, so do the math. When you're working from home and you do stuff you like doing and you do stuff you enjoy doing, no one is going to tell you you have to retire. Now, you may have a harder time getting certain clients at some point, but if you like what you're doing and it's a part of your life, you could do it forever. And you can have a portable office. I mean, last week, as some of you know, I was on vacation, had a lovely ski vacation, but I still did several hours of work a day, if you define work as writing about habits each day, some email, sending out a few prospects. It didn't detract. When I was on the ski slope, the phone was off. When I'm going down the toboggan trail in Lake Placid, I wasn't worrying about my cell phone. You can't be on every second. If you're on every second, you frazzle your brain and you wear yourself out. How do you like to work from home? What tips do you have? We're pretty much out of time for today, but if you want to share those with us tomorrow, we'd love to hear from you. I think we had a comment from Dwayne who was sharing one of his comments. Dwayne says, work from home, one work structure. And listen to, I think you meant one word, structure, and listen to TJ. Well, Dwayne, thanks so much for those kind words. Oh, Dwayne was sharing with us, we missed some of his other comments. He's mentioned he wanted to gain weight. He was 225 pounds. He's now 180, and he's tall, 6'4" tall. So he wants to gain some muscle back. So Dwayne, good luck with your exercise routine at the YMCA and getting back to your peak physical condition at your age and 10 years from now and 20 and 30 years from now. I'm TJ Walker, and I'm wishing all of you good health and having strong daily habits, whether you work in an office or at home. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Okay, saying goodbye to our friends on, oh, I missed a comment on TikTok. Forgive me, B-Burst, you have the formats for the goal setting
This
somewhere we
is
can
a
download.
production.
I do have an online course on goal setting. If you want to type in my name at Udemy, you don't have any specific form. What I just used are the notes section of my phone. That's where I have it. Just write what it is.
Production. This is a Chucky Beat production.